Welcome to Inkwell Spoken Presents Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny. I am your host, Reggie Key, and today's guest is Tash Worjoloh. Tash, how you doing?
I'm great. How you doing?
I am really good. I want to thank your husband Boca. Shout out to Boca for recommending that you come on and talk to me. It's been a while, so it's always good to have a new guest come onto the scene and pass on this information. So you have a general idea what we're here to talk about today. Everything that we are going to spend time in today is going to revolve around this one word, and it's genius. So my first question for you, Taj, is: do you consider yourself to be a genius?
In some respects, yes.
I like that answer. Can you explain?
I feel like there's some areas that I feel really awesome about, and then there's some areas where I'm probably way too critical.
Okay, that's fair. Now, the thing of it is, like, no one there are some things that we've been conditioned and programmed to think when it comes to that word, and I feel like a lot of us feel like we have to be someone who knows a little bit of everything to be a genius. But the perspective that we're going to come from today is we're going to focus on what areas do you feel confident in, because that what the business world calls that being a subject matter expert, right? But I want to focus on this label of genius because oftentimes we discount ourselves from that type of recognition, and there's some very certain reasons why, and I want to get into that next. So my follow-up question for you, Taj, is when that word comes to mind, who do you think of? Like, what's the face that pops into your mind, or what's the name?
A genius?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, because I think of my daughter. I mean,
I love that answer. You're the second person. I've done this about 80 times. You're the second person, only the second, that's named their child. That's great. You know what? That's great. I mean, for obvious reasons, that's great. What's your daughter's name?
Ayana,
And how old is she?
she just turned 13.
Oh, man, I got a 12-year-old that's coming home in 20
Oh
minutes.
yeah. Oh yeah.
So that's great. I hope she knows that her mom considers her to be the genius. If you are giving off the type of vibes that I feel as a mom, you probably already told her that. You probably reinforce that in her often, and that's great.
I try.
The funny thing though is, and most of us are very good at identifying genius in other people, but we fail to do so in ourselves. The same with talent. We're going to talk about that a little later. Um, Specifically, how talent is generational. It shows up in families, and again, we recognize that in other people. We don't see it in ourselves, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
The reason why it's awesome that you say your daughter is because most people, when they name a genius, they name somebody that looks nothing like them, that does not relate to them at all. And so that's why it's harder for them to see genius in themselves, because who they attribute to be genius, they can't connect to. So the fact that you can say your daughter means that, I mean, she come from you and Boca, right? So if you see that genius in her, it didn't just come out of nowhere. It came from you and Boca, which came from, the lineage that you all have combined together in your household. So I'm happy to hear that, because it shouldn't be that much of a struggle for me to convince you of the
Okay.
genius that you have yourself, because you see it in your daughter. Like I said, though, most people don't name somebody that they can relate to. They name actually a person that nobody on this planet has ever looked like. There's one person, and this man looks super unique. Nobody has looked like him before or after, and this is who we attribute genius to most often. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Albert Einstein.
Albert Einstein. And look, I am not trying to take anything away from this man.
Right.
He was a genius in his own right, but don't nobody look like this cat ever. Like,
Right.
so if our children are doing that, because I do focus this towards children, but I mean this goes to anybody. If we are constantly looking at him, ain't nobody gonna see themselves in him, and so you put him on this pedestal of what genius is, and when you do that, you make that pedestal just out of reach for you to be able to get to it, right? And what I want to talk about today is not physics genius. He was one very specific type of genius, and he was good at it. That was more, and I most people associate genius to academics. He wasn't even that strong of a student. I don't know if you knew that.
Mm-mm, I didn't know that.
He Real talk, he was the one that got the letter home to his parents, like, hey man, you might want to make sure Einstein work with his hands because he's not that bright. He got one of those letters home.
Yes.
And can you imagine if he had believed in what other people didn't see in him, how we would have been robbed of one of the greatest physics minds the earth has ever known. And in the same regard, if you disregard who you are and what's on the inside of you, perhaps because of the way you deject that label or because of the way other people don't see what's on the inside of you, then we're getting robbed of the genius potential that's on the inside of you. That makes sense?
Yes, sir.
So what I want to also just giving Einstein his proper, you can't give him his flowers because he's already gone, but just to kind of bolster his story a little bit more. So beyond secondary school, once he got into college, he was still looked at as a pariah, like he didn't belong.
Hmm.
In fact, a lot of his professors would kick him out of their classrooms, because he would be the mirror or the window would be right here, and he'd be like daydreaming or what they thought was daydreaming, and they would tell Einstein like, "Yo, are you paying attention?" I mean, they weren't saying "yo," but you get it. He's like,
Hmm.
"Sir, are you paying attention? Hey, get out of my class." What they didn't understand was he was doing what he later called thought experiments, where he imagined what it would look like to ride a light beam from the sun to the earth. And that's how he began to come up with the theory of relativity. So the way in which he was thinking did not fit conventional teaching methods, which is why people got frustrated with him and didn't want to have anything to do with him and vice versa. And so again, when you look at that type of marginalization, and especially us being minorities in this country, a lot of times how we think, outside of how we look, how we think is thought of as that doesn't fit in here. In fact, the reason why the systems that are broken in the world are broken is because they excluded us. And so we're going to talk about that exclusion a little more. All right.
Okay.
Still, still flowing with me?
Hmm.
All right.
I'm
So
excited.
I'm excited too. Can you tell I get a little jumpy? I'm trying to be
No,
serious.
you're fine. You're fine.
So there's a quote that purportedly comes from Einstein that captures this idea very well. So I want to say the quote to you, and I want to get your reactions. One, I want to know if you've heard the quote before, and two, what is it saying to you? How's it hit? All right, you ready?
Hmm.
Here we go. I feel like a living color. Like here it go.
Right.
Uh, if you judge a fish by how well it can climb a tree, it'll spend its entire life thinking it's stupid.
Hmm. Amen to that.
I feel like you've heard that before.
Or something similar. Yes,
Yeah,
but
you started
it
shaking your
is
head
so
before I even
true.
finished it.
Yes, it is so true. Um, I feel like when you grow up in a society where you're told you have to conform or you have to speak or you have to look a particular way in order to progress forward or do anything successful, and you feel like you cannot be your total authentic self, and like what you bring to the table is not enough.
Mm-hmm.
um and so you you struggle trying to be something you're not, and try to do something you can never do, instead of just being the fish and understanding that your gift is in the water. That's where you swim. I can never, that's not my thing to climb the tree. I'm not you, you're not me, but that doesn't mean that I'm any less of a genius, or I'm any less at providing something,
Right.
of value. So
You got it. You hit a lot of the points. You hit all
yeah.
the points. That's good. I like it. It reminds me. I was just at this men's ministry last night, and we were talking about it's all black men, and we were talking about the pastor was saying one of the most exhausting things. He said he used to study acting, and he was like, acting is exhausting. Like it takes a lot out of you. And he was like, but black men, by and large, when we go into corporate America, when we go into any public place, we are putting on a role. We're acting. We're playing to what people not what they expect of us. Like some of us do play to what we're expected to do, to the prejudices that are out there, but we try to either downplay or play ourselves small because if we get excited and our voice elevates and we got a little bit of bass in our voice, we'll be perceived a certain way. If we're
Yes.
honest in our emotions, we'll be labeled a certain way, right?
Yes.
And that's it. Like you said, that's exhausting. But this is beyond talking about exhaustion, though, Tosh. If you think about a fish, you already nailed it. Like I said, you hit all the points. A fish is designed to function at a high level in water. It has fins, gills, and scales that mean that if you put this joker in the right element, you're going to see it thrive. You're going to see it function in a way that I dare that bear try and jump in the water and keep up with it. It's not going to be able to, I say bear because I have an example that I'll show. This will be in later on in the video. But I had this tree on a tree. I had this post on a tree trunk, and there's this bear that's on it, and that bear represents Einstein. Bears climb trees. Einstein was good at physics. We should not allow our genius to be defined by what he has done because it might not be our element. And the thing about it is, Tosh, what happens if a fish stays out of water for too long?
They die.
It dies, right? And I always in this when I envision this this metaphor, I see the fish, I see the tree, and it's almost like it's on an island. What does that mean? The island means that it's surrounded by water. So its element is not that far away from it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's fixated on what people, I imagine there's somebody coming by every day. Hey, fish, you climb that tree yet? You go, hey, you climb, hey, why didn't you climb the tree yet? And the fish represents us becoming so fixated on what other people expect of us that we fail to see our element. And it's like right next to us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Did you go to the University of Delaware?
No.
I didn't think so because I think we would have known each other because in one, but so many of us, we would have. Everybody was friendly with everybody
Yeah.
on the campus. But I remember when I went to accept my scholarship at the University of Delaware, I had a merit scholarship, and somebody ended up not knowing what type of scholarship I had, but they were very comfortable telling me what I had. Oh, you must be here for football.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like nah, that's nah. You've judged me incorrectly.
Right.
I told them that I was here for engineering. I just saw their mouth kind of drop open. I was like, let me help you with that. Just close your mouth
Yes.
and just allow your world to open up so that you don't do that to the next person.
Mm-hmm.
We all have prejudices, Tosh, but the error that many people commit over and over again is when we meet a person, we don't allow our prejudices to be put down so that we can meet the person for who they truly are. Most of us are so selfish that we want to make, in order for our world to make sense, we'll keep labels on a person, even if it's incorrect, because it makes sense to us. But that's hurting people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I see dying genius all around me. I see fish out of water. And I feel like my job is to revitalize, resuscitate, and resurrect the genius that I encounter when I see it in people.
Okay.
So my goal is to get you in your element, to get you in your water, so to speak. All
That's
right?
where I want to be. Yep. I
Cool.
feel like I'm 75%. I feel like I'm always near it, but not quite 100%. Maybe a couple times.
Yeah. So let's get into it. So the three elements that are going to, the three components that are going to help define your element, I believe I already mentioned them, are passion, talent, and purpose. But just like this genius word, I'm going to have to deconstruct at least two of them so that we can get a better understanding of how this all fits together. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is passion.
All right.
And so, Claude, this is where you come back into it. What words come to mind when you hear this word, passion?
Specific to me or just the definition of passion?
I mean, either works, really.
Oh, okay.
Generically speaking, and then what do you say your passion is? Yeah, let's do
Oh,
that.
okay. Yeah. So, passion is, gosh, to define is something that makes your heart sing when you do it. It's not like not doing work at all because you're
Mhm.
just so enthralled in it that you're enjoying it, even when it's tough to do
Mm,
it. Um, you still have a love for it,
yep.
in some form. That's what I see. My passion specifically, I'm still trying to figure that out. The one thing that I can say is I know I love helping people and I
Okay.
love growth. I
Love
love
growth.
growth, yes, and individual self growth as well as growth in others. I have a lot of conversations with people, and we have discussions like that, and that fuels me. But that,
Cool.
and I love helping people, education, when the light bulb turns on, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I'm glad that you hadn't locked it in so tight, because sometimes when somebody does give me their passion and I kind of redefine what the word means, it's like, oh, I guess that's not my passion anymore, and it can be hard to let go of that thing. For example, when I talk to athletes, they'll tell me that their passion is whatever sports that they play. However, when I redefine it, we come into a problem, because I'm like, well, this no longer qualifies as your passion as it relates to your genius, and it's okay. This is all about just kind of shifting paradigms, right? So you mentioned heart, like something that makes your heart sing. And when we think of the heart and we think of an emotion, what emotion do we connect with the heart most times?
Love,
Love.
love.
Love is to passion what Einstein is to genius. It's like the number one answer. However, you saw what I did with Einstein. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, that's cool that it's the number one answer, but I'm about to shift and pivot it and put it on its ear. I'm gonna do the same thing with love. So I read this book one time by this guy named Mike Murdoch called
Mm-hmm.
The Assignment.
Okay.
And he defined passion from the opposite end of the spectrum of love. He
Mm-hmm.
said, if you want to figure out what your passion is, focus on what you hate. And here's
Mm.
a lot of people don't like that word. They're like, I don't know if I say I want to hate something. I'm not talking about hating people at all. I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about hating a thing. Here's what he's saying. Klaus, would you agree that the world is broken?
Yes.
I agree as well. In fact, it's so broken, it's so diverse in its brokenness that it can break and affect you differently than how a broken piece affects me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
There's something that all of us have been exposed to, likely from our childhood, that afflicted us, that hurt us, that traumatized us to the point where when we see it operating as adults, people are like, "Ooh, I hate that." And it goes beyond just what it did to us. When we see that thing still functioning and hurting other people, especially people that we love, like our children or our family or whomever it is, we'll start saying stuff like, hey, somebody should do something about that.
Mm-hmm.
I hate when I see that operating. But in fact, you've heard the expression, I hate that, with a passion.
Mm-hmm.
And so what he's saying is, hey, that's what you will put on this planet to actually fix. That's
Mm-hmm.
why it gets your attention. Some people get mad. They're like, they don't bother you? Like, no, it doesn't actually, because their trauma is different from your trauma. The thing that makes them feel like a fish out of water is different from what makes you feel like a fish out of water. But guess
Okay.
what? It defines your element, though. It defines what you will put on this planet to address. And the thing of it is, Tosh, it's never something small. It's always something large and systemic that feels like, well, doggone it. Like, you almost got to look up at it like, how am I supposed to even address this? But when you're driven by passion, when you're driven to be determined, it's like my wife, she didn't come up with this, but she once asked, hey, how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time. And,
Mm-hmm.
and you won't care if you just biting at his ankles or if you bite the whole thing's head off. Like, as long as I'm getting at it, I don't care. Like, I got a taste for elephant, right? It
Mm-hmm.
becomes your Goliath, the Goliath to your David.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how big this thing is relative to my stature. I'm equipped to handle this thing, and I'm gonna take his head off though.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Doesn't traumatize, hurt, or demean or devalue anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So I have an example for
Mm-hmm.
you of how this
That's
works.
interesting. Okay.
It is interesting, isn't it?
It is interesting.
So can I tell you a story about some? It's a real life story about what this looks like when you actually apply it to the life of young people specifically, but like all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a friend who's a principal, and she had these 9 to 10 little boys who were all in the same classroom all day, third, fourth, and fifth grade, and they were all minorities. And she was like, "Can you just come and spend some time with them, like chop it up with them on a weekly basis?" And I was like, "Sure." I had this workshop. I felt like I was going to come in and identify their genius and just kind of get them on the right path. Um, so pause, time out for a second. Does that sound normal though? They were third, fourth, and fifth graders, all in one class all day. Does that sound
No,
right to you?
no, it does not at all.
It's not. What I found out was that they were all on IEPs, individual education plans, or what you and I would have known as special ed back in
Mm-hmm.
the day.
Mm-hmm.
So they're marginalized at this point, right? So I got into the classroom, and one of the first things I was saying to them, "Hey, look, we're going to talk about each of you is a genius. Did you know that?" And they looked at me like, "Psh, "You got in the wrong classroom." Like, "Sir, I think you're in the wrong place." One of them got offended, like, "Don't call me that." And it was and a lot of people have that kind of knee jerk reaction. There's an accountability that comes with this genius label that a lot of people aren't ready for.
Mhm.
Because if you step out, and I'm not saying you're supposed to walk around introducing yourself like Wile E. Coyote, like, yeah, Wile E. Coyote is super genius, right? You're not supposed to walk around boasting this to you, but a lot of people, once they begin to put this idea out there, there is going to be someone who's going to start watching you and being like, the minute that you don't do something genius, they're like, see, you ain't no genius. I told you you won X, Y, Z or whatever, right? We have to push past that. Um, but I couldn't get them to push past that right away. So I was like, all right, cool. What was messed up about them, Tosh, was that they were comfortable. They had become conditioned to accepting negative labels,
Yeah.
such that when I put a positive one on them, they didn't know how to receive it. They were comfortable with being called having ADD, ADHD, and being chemically imbalanced, more on medication, and emotionally disturbed. They were used to people addressing them in that manner. They were used to roasting one another, calling each other all types of names. They thought that was hilarious. But when I
Hmm.
called them genius, they bucked back like, nah, don't call me that.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'll deal with that later. Here's where the hate question becomes very vital, because I was like, well, I know how to get you to talk in my mind. I'm like,
Hmm.
what you hate though? You're like, again, sir, I don't think you know who you dealing with and who you talking to. Are you sure you want to know what I hate? And the teachers in the background sweating like, oh my gosh, what is this man doing? I'm like, no, I want to hear it. And these little boys, Tosh, who could never agree on what game to play, who hit who first, whose turn it was to go to the bathroom, all told me the same thing almost in unison. Can you guess what it is they told me they hated?
School.
Yep.
Okay.
Ooh, Mr. Key. Now what? They just knew they had thrown me a curveball and messed up my whole presentation. But I'm like, nah, you saying something though. I said, look, if you pick up what I'm putting down, that the thing that you will put on this planet, the thing that traumatizes you, the thing that marginalizes you, that makes you feel like a fish out of water, is the very thing that you will put on this planet to actually fix, then what you all just told me is that you're future educators. And they got real quiet and their eyes got real big and they tried to like back away from me. And I was like, no, come here. No, come close. I'm like, you the one that said that. It came out of your mouth. And I was like, it makes sense. It makes sense that they would hate school beyond the fact that they're all in these different grades, but in this classroom all day. It makes sense because I know how the school system is set up.
Hmm.
School system, did you know that there's 8 different learning languages, learning styles?
No.
So none of us really know that because at most schools only teach from 3. You're either going to learn verbally, like we're
Hmm.
talking right now,
Yeah.
visually, or you're going to be approached from a left brain perspective. The left brain is what processes the logical things like math. And a lot of people hate math. But
Hmm.
if all the information is being processed and then given to you to consume in these 3 languages, and that's not the style of learning that you have, you can be like, I don't understand what's being said here. I must be dumb.
Hmm.
Going back to the fish quote now. And if you keep going to a place every day and made to feel like you're stupid and you don't belong, you would naturally hate it.
Hmm.
And so I said, let's talk about some of these other learning styles. I'm still talking to these boys, but I say this in all my workshops. There are at least 3 other learning styles that our young people specifically probably flow in.
Hmm.
One of them is being a right brain thinker. That's the creative. That's the person who responds to music. Einstein was actually more of a right brain thinker than a left brain thinker because of these thought experiments that he did up here, where he
Hmm.
literally thought outside of the box concerning the things that were surrounding him. The other learning style is it's called expeditionary or exploratory, which means you got to put your hands on stuff in
Hmm.
order to process the information. But hey, what happens when you go to put your hand on something in the classroom? Hey, keep your hands to yourself. And you're like,
Right.
hey, this place.
Hmm.
That's my learning style. The other, this is where the athlete comes into it. The other is you're a kinesthetic learner, which means you gotta move to process information. But every time they need to get up and move, hey, sit down, be still.
Hmm.
Dang
Hmm.
it. Suppressing my learning style. I hate this place. And so I told them, like, once you understand what your learning style is, if instead of running away from this institution and being like, I hate school, if you in fact ran towards it and realized that you were equipped in the very thing that the school was missing, because the school system is broken because these learning styles aren't fully represented, then
Mm-hmm.
when your learning style becomes your teaching style, you're going to connect with other people in the classrooms that speak the same language as you. And they're not going to feel lost like you felt lost.
Mm-hmm.
Once all 8 learning styles are represented, this then presents the opportunity for the entire school system to be reconstructed so that you pair the right learning style with its matching teaching style. And so, I mean, places are doing that even now. What's the spot? Montessori school function
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is game changing. This is like revolutionary. This truly does talk about no child being left behind if you can come from that perspective. They're equipped with the very thing that people are telling them, hey, don't use that. That doesn't fit in here.
Mm-hmm.
We know that from the story of David and Goliath, right? David, when he said, hey, I'm gonna kill this giant, the king was like, hey, take my armor. David was like,
Mm-hmm.
dude, I'm a little boy. I'm
Right.
on this grown man's armor, you're gonna get me murdered out here.
Mm-hmm.
But if you give me my slingshot and give me give me 5 smooth stones, watch what I can do. I've been taking out lions and bears guarding my father's sheep, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that transitions us into the next element, the next component, and that's talent. Because the talent, and I'm a fast tracker, your purpose in life is to discover what your talent is and then apply that talent to your passion. Let me say it a
Okay.
different way.
What you said was good. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna pause for a second, let you get that.
Can you re say that?
Absolutely. Your purpose in life is to discover what your talent is and then apply it to your passion.
Okay.
That unlocks your genius.
Okay.
Let me say it in another way though,
Uh-huh.
because David did it. David said, "Hey, look, my talent is I give me my slingshot. Watch what I do with this Philistine dog that I don't like." He called him a
Right.
uncircumcised dog. He was like, "I'm gonna get at this dude that's been taunting and tormenting y'all for 40 days and 40 nights. I'm gonna show you what I can do. I don't care how big he is." And so we talked about the brokenness of the school system. We talk about the brokenness of the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you encounter, I don't know who's the fixer in the house, but when you or Boca encounters something that's broken in your house and you begin to kind of assess, like, can I fix that? You know, YouTube make it so that we can YouTube University makes it so that we can restore anything. But
Mm-hmm.
once you feel like you can fix it, what do you look for to fix anything?
What do I look for?
Yeah, if it's something broken and you're like, all
Uh,
right, I think I know how to fix this, but I need
the instructions or
instructions, but it's something that you got to put your hand on.
oh, tools.
You need tools.
Mm-hmm.
Your talent is your tool to fix what's broken that's making you feel like a fish out of water.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Other
Mm-hmm.
people that you see in your community, in your environment. And that would drive you like no other thing. You're like, oh, this is and but as easy as this sounds to put together, some people do struggle. Remember I said at the beginning of the video, some people struggle with identifying what their talent is. And so for those who I ask and I say, hey, what's your talent? They're like, I don't know. I don't think I have one. It's like, okay, your talent is generational, meaning it's not coming out of you out of nowhere. It's coming from your forefathers, your grandmothers, your great grandmothers. It's coming from within your lineage.
Mm-hmm.
This is not as foreign as it sounds because we recognize that in athletes, LeBron's son about to come into the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's waiting for that. They're going to play together.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be the first father son duo to ever do that.
Right.
But nobody's questioning that. Well, Bronny's father is LeBron James. Of course he plays basketball. We don't question that with entertainers. The Jacksons had just talent coming out the seams.
Mm-hmm.
All the brothers and all the sisters sang. We don't have a problem with that. We don't have a problem identifying it in them. But why do we have a problem identifying it in us? So, for those who, and I'm gonna ask you what your talent is momentarily, but for those who say I don't know what it is, and for the athlete, I'll tell them, hey, look, your talent is that you excel in some type of sport, right? But how can you apply that talent as a tool to fix what's broken. We're gonna come back and talk about LeBron James in a minute too.
Mhm.
And so when I encounter people that say they don't know what their talent is, I'm like, just look at what your parents are doing. Maybe it's a hobby now because they had to put it to the side in order to put food on the plate. They're like, I can't keep messing around with this thing because I got to find a way to supply for my family. But
Mhm.
maybe grandma was working in it. Dad, maybe granddad was good with his hands. And he was a mechanic that could fix anybody's car on the block, right? Those things are passed on through the generations into where we presently have them in our hands.
Mhm.
And we can kind of see them for what they are. So with that, I'm gonna ask you, Tosh, what do you see your talent as?
Mhm.
Oh,
That's a good
I like
question. um, you just got my brain thinking because you think you have it, and then you're like, maybe I don't. Like,
nah, just it's okay, just say it.
um, the first thing that comes to my mind is being able to galvanize people, to
Oh,
bring people together.
I like that. Now, what was I gonna ask you? What do so you struggled for a second to put a pin in that. Um, Oftentimes, even though we do a thing, it's either false humility or just not seeing it as something special that causes us to overlook it, right?
Yes.
Even I'm gonna go to another story in the Bible. Even Moses, when he was told, "Hey, go free my people from Pharaoh," though he was like, "Yeah, I stutter, right? I gotta." He's like, God was like, "I got you, man. I made your lips. I know what you can do and what you can't do. Trust me, I got you. I'm gonna send you to your brother. He's gonna speak for you." And Moses was still giving excuses. So then eventually, God was like, "Hey, yo, like again, I know God ain't saying yo and bro, but he was like, bro, what's in your hand though?" He's like, I just got this rod. He was like, yeah, put the rod on the ground though. He put it on the ground, it became a snake. And of course, Moses jumped back. And when God was like, pick it up again, he picked
Right.
it up by his tail. It became a rod again. The message, you have everything you need already in your hand. But it's so common to you that you just don't even recognize it for what it is. So when I see people in that type of place, and I'm not saying that you are because you did mention something, but the thing that I want to follow up and ask you is, what do other people say you're good at? And I know that we're being careful because some people will mislabel and misunderstand you, but what if other people consistently say it that you do well?
I have been told many times that I should be some kind of a life coach.
Okay.
Am I interested in that? I don't think so. but but that's the one thing that I hear a lot of, just in conversations, like with friends and that kind of stuff. Um, that's all I got to give. I mean, then you got people that you work with, but that's different, I guess. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, I probably should have started with a disclaimer to say that, hey, when I point you in the direction of your genes, you might not like it. You might reject it. You might be like, yeah, no. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, when you first told me what your passion was, I heard counselor right away. But I was like, Leah, let me not jump to the gun because I want to hear what the passion is, though, what the talent is, rather. And so let's look at how that pieces together, though. If you're someone who has a natural ability to galvanize people, and you're also someone who does not like seeing. Tell me what your passion is again. I want to make sure I say it right.
Uh, growth.
Growth.
I like, yes, I
Where
like
do you think?
education and growth.
So where do you think that comes from? When you think about how I said most of the time the passion that we have comes from something that we experienced as a child. Where do you think your desire, or let's reframe this properly. If you like to see growth in people in education, then to me that implies that you hate ignorance and you hate it when people are suppressed and unable to grow, not because of anything that's intrinsically wrong with them, but possibly because of the environments that they're put in.
That hurts right there. I don't like that at all.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So how and it's when you hear the word galvanize, I don't think of one-on-one when I hear the word galvanize. When I hear the word galvanize, I think of an impact that is greater than just one person. Like the ability to speak or to operate in such a way that you're mobilizing numerous people at the same time. Life coaches are more like one on one,
Yes.
and one on one, that can be a little trying, right? Because now you got this person who's supposed to be giving you their undivided attention, but if they don't pick up what you're putting down, then all it don't matter what you're saying to them. It's going to be like, well, I'm not ready to do that yet. You're like, well, dang it, like I didn't spend an hour helping you figure this out, and that can be frustrating. But when you galvanize a people, a group, it's like, okay, the energy becomes almost like this call and response type thing. You're like, okay, as a group, y'all heard me, y'all felt me. And so do you work in corporate America? Like, where do you work?
I do corporate America stuff mostly, yes, and I also, well, not as much as I used to, but personal finance. So
Ah,
that's how
that
me and
makes
my
sense. It's one of
husband
those.
met.
Yep.
That's how we met. Yes.
Yep. So that I know that excites Boca. And this aspect of helping people financially overcome the obstacles that have been placed in front of them because of how people have been prejudiced against them. This is just a complete tangent, but the systemic prejudice that people who lack economic understanding experience, and let's be honest, like minorities in this country, like everybody has prejudice. We already said this earlier. We all have to overcome prejudices and biases, but racism is when your prejudice is enforced by law.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if by law there are things like redlining that took place in the latter part of the century, and all manner of obstacles that are put in place, and all manner of knowledge that's suppressed from a certain people group because the intent is to keep them behind, to keep them beneath, to keep them marginalized. Once we begin to kind of see the system for what it is, we're like, yeah, somebody need to tear this down. No, this is not, this is inequitable, and this just perpetuates inequality.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's now where you can begin to address. I want to galvanize an entire people group to be able to overcome the obstacles that's, and what's most dangerous is when you can't see an obstacle. Like, can you imagine getting in a ring and fighting an opponent that you can't see?
Mm.
You don't get
That's
knocked out
mm-hmm.
before you even had a chance to fight good.
Yeah.
And I see you as one who's like, let me just help you see the opponent. Let me help my people and other suppressed minorities. And minorities, we can talk about race, or we can talk about any place where there are disenfranchised people. And like, let me help you see the system for what it is. And galvanize. Because I don't know about a lot of people, but when I know that something or someone is trying to cripple me or hurt me, once I see the devices and the schemes that are set up against me, I become like super. That galvanizes me. That makes me like, oh, I see you operating now. I'm not going to let that happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
I see
Mm-hmm.
the machinations that are now set up against me, and I'm gonna do everything within my power to make sure that doesn't happen to me or anybody else. And so, see, now the way that you galvanize is now being when you hit the right, when you meet the right people and you meet the right even person, they're going to be galvanized to take up everything that you're saying and then pass the information on, because it doesn't work when somebody receives this type of enlightenment and then keep it to themselves. And that's where genius gets really good, because genius doesn't just, it starts off empowering you, but then it looks to see, all right, who else can I empower the way that
Mm-hmm.
I can?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it just sustains itself and creates legacies.
Mm-hmm.
So how does that sound? I feel like, there are three components, but this is almost like putting a puzzle together to see what the greater vision is. And as simple as these three pieces sound to put together, I don't know, you probably like me. I have several things that I hate and I have several talents. So trying to put things together and figure it out, sometimes I got to switch the orientation. Sometimes I got to take a step back from it. Sometimes I got to walk away. Everybody got into puzzles when COVID hit and be like, I can't do this right now. Let me come back to it later. And so I don't know how much this is clicking right now, but I feel like there is a broader picture being revealed to you right now. So you want to speak to it?
No. Yes. I mean, I just feel like I don't know how to say, you're putting the words together for me. You know what I mean? Um, I don't, this was the first time I ever used the word galvanized, to be honest with you. um,
You said
and
it.
so, huh?
You said it.
I know I did, right? I'm like, oh, you tripping, girl. But anyway, so it's good, it's good, it's good.
Yeah, yeah.
But how's it making me feel? I am taking it all in. I don't know what else to say about that. I'm taking it all in. I feel like we're on the right track. I agree that there's so many little pieces, but I feel like this is a bigger part of all the little pieces, you know?
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, I don't know what else to say. I'm pretty speechless. I just taking it all in, you know. I feel like you're walking all the way down my street, like you know, when you're in church and you be like, yeah,
Yeah, he's talking to me.
that's right, yeah, he all on
He-
my street right
yeah,
now, right?
he is all in my Kool-Aid. Um, the good news about it is that you don't have to do this alone because I already know a little bit about what your husband does, and there are aspects and facets to what he does that you all can do together. And what did I say at the beginning? I said you're probably already operating in it because you're already
Mhm.
doing a thing with Boca,
Yeah.
and maybe sometimes the ownership comes when you see how the pieces fit together. Like, oh, this is more me than I even thought before. Like I was doing it before, but maybe you're just doing it because, all right, this is kind of Boca's vision. But now, you can see your specific functionality, your specific genius helps you realize that you have something to contribute to the world.
Hmm.
And maybe you see a way to expand the business that Boca has that's really specific to you, that doesn't diminish it, but that helps broaden it.
Hmm.
I want to give you one last example. Remember, I talked about LeBron James, and I was talking about athletes now. Now, just again, I am not a LeBron James fan,
Okay.
but when I say this, it's not coming from somebody that's just think he the greatest thing since sliced bread. I'm not a fan of him as a man personally.
Hmm.
I don't care about his acumen on the basketball court. However, what I do care about is his genius. I've seen it operating. So I've already identified that his talent is basketball. That's clear. That's evident. I'll give respect and honor where it's due. Like, yeah, he a bad boy on the court, but his genius is not on the court. You may know what I'm gonna get at eventually, but though I don't know, I've never heard him say what he hates. I can glean from what he hates by what he's done in Akron, Ohio, where he grew up.
Hmm.
You know about his story. You know that he had to go into private school because what? The public schools that he was in were not good.
Hmm.
He was in poverty. And because of that poverty and because of how it impacted the school system, the public school system, he had to go into private school just to make sure that the trajectory of his athleticism would take him to the heights that we've seen him go to now. And so when he got to those heights, when he got the money, when he got the wealth, when he got the platform, when he got the championships, he didn't rest on his laurels and say, all right, I'm a bad boy on the court and I got my mama a house and I got myself a couple cars. I'm good. My son about to come into the NBA. He was like, you know what? Let me go back to Akron, Ohio and do a thing. You know that thing that he did?
Opened up the school.
He built a school.
Hmm.
He built a school that was everything that he did not have access to when he was growing up. So that now his legacy is beyond basketball. His legacy is, hey, and he made it public too. He could have easily made it private, and it would have just contributed to the problem. Not everybody would have had access to a private school, but everybody within the proper school district has access to this public school that he created that has the best teachers, the best resources to make sure that nobody ever has to go through the path that he went through again. That's genius,
Hmm.
and I salute him for that because I don't see a lot of people doing that with the wealth and the platform that they've
Right.
amassed.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so that just adds to and fortifies what we're saying. So we're coming up into an hour now,
Okay.
and I promise you I have you for about an hour. So I just want to end the same way we started, Tosh, and just ask you: do you consider yourself to be a genius?
I really do. I like I really do. I really do. I just not to be not to be cloudy with stuff. You know what I mean? Anymore, just be more clear and succinct. But yes, I do.
Yeah.
I do. Hmm.
Like I said, it's all about how you label a thing. Once you put the proper label on it, you're like, oh, okay, I see that clearer now. I just got the image of a hammer. Like, can you imagine the first person that used a hammer, and if they were using it sideways to bang in a nail, like, yeah, it worked, but once somebody tell you, like, hey, bro, like, turn that 90 degrees and make sure that the pointy part is facing you, now hit the nail. You're like, oh, that's, you know what? I can hit it a lot better now. It was more efficiency. And that's what this is
Hmm.
all about. Just making sure that you're hitting the mark, that you're hitting this target more efficiently. So I'm glad that you were able to say it with the quickness too, like, yeah, I'm a genius.
Hmm. Yeah,
That's good.
this was great.
Thank you. I'm glad that it was great for you. It's always great for me to walk through this with people in groups. So, as we end, I'll just, like I said, I'll end how I started. This has been Reggie Key, presents Ink Well Spoken, Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny. And this has been my genius guest, Tash Worjoloh.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode. Make sure you pick up the book Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny by my dad, Reggie Legend, available on Amazon and at inkwellspoken.com. Connect with us at Inkwellspoken on all social media platforms. If you enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload.